Video number 9, October 3rd, 1708, day 2. So today I wanted to pick up where I left off yesterday, where I mentioned information regarding the densities. The densities are just another term for dimensions. And the way they're structured in this universe, or at least this part of the universe that we know of, they're structured in a way where it's in octaves. So there's basically 7 densities per octave. And then the 8th one becomes the first one, and that's another octave, and so on and so on. So I'll go through the 7 in this density. The first density is basically just rocks and dirt. It's the basic building blocks or elements that is composed of the material universe. And the link between the first and the second is when these rocks and elements mix together to form life. And once life is formed, then it can start to become considered second density. And second density is life forms. Now these are just everyday animals like cats, dogs, birds, etc. And animals typically have a group mentality. They work in almost a group consciousness on a primitive level. This is most evident in birds, where they travel in flocks quite often, and also dolphins, where despite their very large brains and potential for high levels of intelligence and high empathy, they still travel in packs. Now, what's the difference between a second density and third density? And the difference is the animal is able to say, I am different from the pack because I have awareness of my individuality. And once the animal and its genetics are able to come to that moment, that life form is considered to be third density and able to spark souls. That's the important thing. And it's that ability to become independent from the pack that sparks a soul. So it's from that moment, third density is where souls are sparked. And in the greater scheme of things, it's considered to be kindergarten. And anybody who has a more clear perspective of how the world works and how nasty people can be and how the elite operates in this world, yeah, it pretty much stinks like kindergarten, pretty much. So the question is, how do you get out of third density? Well, basically, from this point on, once the soul sparks, each density has a overall lesson to it. And for third density, it's called the choice. And the choice is basically choosing one's spiritual orientation, which I mentioned in the previous video, number 8. Service to others or service to self. And it's only when this orientation is made is when that soul is able to travel to fourth density. And it's either going to be, at that point, fourth density service to self, soul, or fourth density service to others, soul. Depending on what the orientation is going to be, they'll find themselves on certain planets. For instance, the service to self have their own what's called prison planets. They only mingle among themselves. And for the service to others, this is the same ordeal. And the lesson for fourth density is basically one of love. And it's forming a group consciousness based upon love and being able to formulate to such an extent that you begin to see the wisdom behind the whole creation. And it's only when they reach that wisdom is when they enter fifth density, in which, of course, is the lesson of the wisdom of his creation, his being the higher power that you believe in. By fifth density, physical life forms are no longer required because the soul at that point is strong enough that it is able to actually form its own light body. This is actually one of the lessons in fifth density. At one point, they actually have to learn how to do this. And the physical gross body is no longer utilized at that point. Seeing that, getting to a light body, begin to realize the unity that is found within all things and how they can see themselves in the other person at such a deep level. And when they start to get to this point, they start to reach the sixth density. And meanwhile, the service to self attempt to increase their wisdom because, as previously stated in the last video, they are not after love, but they are after wisdom itself. But when they start to approach sixth density, their wisdom tells them that they cannot progress further because their own wisdom will tell them that the other person is basically themselves. And they don't have really much of a choice but to merge into the service to others orientation. So by the time sixth density comes around, the service to self essentially merge with the service to other as they realize the dead end of their orientation. The sixth density is one of unity. That is, their primary lesson is of unity, is understanding how everything in the universe is united and how all actions affect everyone else. They actually do not operate in time. They operate outside of time because time is a function, and at that point the soul is mature enough to not manipulate it for its own ends. But the perspective up in sixth density becomes a little bit difficult for the human mind to comprehend. Let's just say that sixth density beings can work with any soul in any of our times. And this is alluding to the eternal moment, which happens at quote-unquote any time. So time kind of being an illusion here is what's being hinted at. Now, beyond sixth density, there's not a lot of information. There is a seventh density, but it's pretty tight-lipped. There's not a lot coming out about it. It's alluded to as the Great Return. And beyond that, there is another octave to go through. So it has something to do with not having, so to speak, our concept of individuality as we know it, because of the realization that, well, if so many things are myself, then what is individuality? But this is my conjecture based off of the information that I have learned over the years. So, yeah, that's basically the structure of the densities. And no, third density beings cannot do time travel, at least not physical time travel. They're not allowed to do that. Time projection is like a gray area. That's basically projecting one's consciousness across time, but not physically going to it. There's some allowance for that, but it is definitely one of those gray areas. And most people don't really take part in that anyway. So it's only until fourth density when souls become more mature than where they can actually start to work inside time. But even then, they still require approval from what could be called the Council of Worlds or the Galactic Federation or the governing body in this side of the universe, basically. So in every single instance where one needs to work in time, it has to be approved every single time. So it's not like they can just go in there and do whatever they want because they have a license to do it. No, they need a permit for every single moment they do it. So it's still quite restricted even at fourth density. So yeah, that's basically the densities. The other thing I wanted to talk about, and it's more on a personal note, is harshness and softness. There's like this interesting attitude I've observed lately also, where people are either becoming just way too harsh or they're just too soft. And maybe it's just me. I know for me, harshness is an issue because for those who are astrologically, who like astrology and they have that in their mind, I've got Aries and Venus and Moon. So my emotions tend to be kind of harsh sometimes, and it's kind of difficult not to be. But there's a lot of reasons to that. First of all, it's my social anxiety flaring up. Other times it's people giving me a smile while they have a demons attached to some of their bodies or something, and they're lashing out at my thoughts, and they expect me to treat them the same way. It's like, come on, I'm just tired of that. And just the way the economy is going also is another reason. There's just a lot on my mind, a lot on my heart. It's just a lot to get out there. But also I've noticed that people have become really soft. Like if I exude certain kind of energy, they just cower under pressure. They just complain I'm being too harsh with them. Where in the past, people were harsh with me when I was growing up, like in capitalist companies, and just the way people were, they were just much more harsh. So it's just like, well, you know what? This is how life shaped me. So, oh well, I can only try. But at the same time, it's not just me. People have definitely become soft as well. And I'm wondering it's because of what's going on in the world, or it's a possible effect of the spiritual polarization going on between the spiritual polarities and the undecided souls. Or perhaps it's a mix of all of these. So, who knows? All I can do is just work on myself, and that's basically about it. That's all I can do. Just work on myself and treat myself right, or at least try to, and not cow to any negative thought forms trying to tell me you got to sabotage yourself to fit in, which is nonsense. Fit into what? So I guess that's this video. Thanks for watching, and have a good day.